What's up, everybody? I'm Aslan Hajavandi, joined by founder and administrator of Warchant.com, the ultimate Seminole sports source, Gene Williams. So you got to hit the like button when the big dog is in the house. And if you're not a member of Warchant.com, you're not going to find a better deal right now until August 15th. A great promo that's running. Norvell 2020 is the promo code. You get 25% off an annual membership to Warchant.com. You get a $25 e-card to Garnet and Gold. So even if you don't live in Tallahassee, you're covered. You can use it wherever you are. And then Gene went ahead and added 3 free months on top of that. So your generosity is much appreciated, Gene. We got to talk football finally on Thursday for like over an hour and a half. We got all coordinators, head football coach, 2 players, lots and lots to discuss about. Let's jump right into the head football coach himself, Mike Norvell. It's going to be a different sort of way to run practice, and he set the table for how he expects to go moving forward.
We're gonna split the first 3 days. We're gonna go basically a split squad practice. This is something that I've done. I did it, first couple of years at Memphis. It's really gonna have a big fundamental, approach to what we're trying to do. There won't be a whole lot of team or group work together, but making sure that we're able to get individualized teaching. Obviously, that's the smaller groups. That's going to help us, as we kind of phase into to practice. I think will be a very positive thing.
So yeah, that was probably one of the more interesting things that Mike Norvell talked about. Obviously, having to make a lot of adjustments because these are very different times for us. About splitting the squads up, a lot more individual work with guys, and I think that goes hand in hand. Later, he talked about how you're going to kind of balance missing spring practice. Then how do you balance what you missed out in the spring from what you would normally do in August to prepare for the season? He really sounded like there's going to be a lot more fundamental work. Guys don't know the system. They got 3 practices in before 1 contact practice. So it didn't even matter. A lot of the veterans coming back, they got to get back to basics with these guys because, and talking to some of the position coaches too, we'll get into that later. They talked about really focusing on things have to change. They're going to be taught differently than they were the last couple of years. So I think there's going to be a lot of individual work, small group work, fundamentals, and not exciting stuff really for a lot of us, but not a lot of scheme stuff for a while. So I think that's one of the biggest changes. Then obviously keeping guys separate in individual groups. Obviously that there's some limitation then on the potential exposure. We didn't get a whole lot on that. Coach Norvell was a little vague on specifics in terms of the protocols, other than they're going to follow local government, ACC, everything that's handed down, that everybody's done a really good job in terms of respecting all the protocols and doing the right job there.
Following Coach Norvell, we had his offensive coordinator and right-hand man, Kenny Dillingham, who kind of joked about the fact that, man, he only saw these guys throw the football 3 days, so that's the most excited thing he's for once practice finally starts, watching these quarterbacks throw the ball. And while he doesn't have a great feel for the quarterbacks, on the surface, he definitely likes what he has in that quarterback room.
I think it's a really talented group. I think we got guys who obviously, some guys have experience. Some guys have experience playing in games, maybe not as a full-time starter, but they have experience being on the football field in meaningful minutes. And some guys are true freshmen, so the experience level's kind of all over the place in that room. But from a skill set standpoint, they're all a little different, but they all have a good amount of athleticism. Some more than others, but they can all move. They're all going to be able to extend plays, and those are things. Obviously, when you're a new staff and in this system, really any system in football, when you have a guy who can, take a bad play and turn it into a positive, that's good.
Yeah, I had to jump in there and ask Coach Dillingham about the quarterback situation, and I'd asked Norvell earlier about it too, because to me, that's going to be one of the big storylines team-wise when you've got a completely open competition with just not 2 quarterbacks, but 4 quarterbacks. Any one of them could legitimately win the job, and that's pretty unusual. But I was surprised when Coach Dillingham said they had that situation at least one other time at Missouri and at Memphis, sorry. And then when I asked about, well, what's the process of determining that? It's pretty simple. Every practice they get graded, and if you grade out the highest, you're going to get the most reps in next practice, and so on and so on and so on. So they neither Coach Norvell nor Coach Dillingham would give a timeline of when they want to decide. But obviously at some point you got to fish or cut bait because you got to prepare for Georgia Tech. And you need that lead guy to get the reps in there. So, it's going to be hopefully we have some access to be able to go out in there and see the quarterbacks. But from everything we hear, this is going to be wide open. This is going to be really interesting to see how this plays out.
On the defensive side of things, we spoke to Adam Fuller following that. And somebody that seems to be standing out on that side of the ball for him is a guy that they're putting at a position that they call stud.
I think that fits him. one of the best things Amari does is he absolutely plays with great constant effort. He can flat out run. He's got a really good mindset about him. So, I think he'll be a really good outside-in player.
Gene, so what would your thoughts be if Coach wanted you to line up at the stud position?
Well, I would be very complimentary. I mean, there's other good, cool names. A bandit's pretty cool to be a bandit too, I suppose. You hear that one sometimes. And he talks some about the Fox position, which I guess is like a stand-up defensive, and a lot of cool terminology on all the defensive players. But the specific he got in was Amari Gaynor, who we've heard so much. We saw glimpses of last year, but a guy that everybody's raved about. He's put on a lot of good weight. He's a big kid. He's 6'3", 227 pounds, and put him in that stud position, which is, you got some defensive back responsibilities, some strong safety type responsibilities in addition to linebackers. So you got to be really agile and be able to run sideline to sideline, be able to play that position. And the fact that he mentioned Amari by name shows you they have a lot of confidence in what he can do, both in terms of getting out open field, making tackles, and then covering people as well.
Special teams, obviously, the third phase of the football team and the football game. Mike Norvell is very focused on that side of the ball, or that segment rather. John Papuchis, defensive ends coach and special teams coordinator, spoke about what I thought was a very interesting thing about pretty much how they're going to operate on special teams will probably be the way that we'll see them play throughout the game.
For us, special teams is going to be a key in terms of the identity of our football team. And so the best guys are going to play across the board. Now, we're going to be smart in terms of how we use guys, but we said to the team the other day that part of our identity as a football team is what we look like on kickoff coverage. We want to make sure that we are showcasing our speed, our physicality. One of the things here at Florida State that we know we have is we got great team speed.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing Coach Papuchis, as he likes to call himself, Coach JP's comments on the special teams, which if you remember that very first press conference we had with Mike Norvell, one of the things that stood out to me about that was how he said, special teams are so important to us, and it's not just lip service. I mean, you look at statistically, they're always in the top 2 or 3, seems like every season in special teams, but we treat that just as important as our other positions on the field. And Coach Papuchis obviously reflected that in his comments today. And, I asked him specifically about the kickoff and punt returns, and he said they're looking at, he said DJ's obviously got the experience on the punt returns, but they were going to work 4 guys there. And on kickoff returns, they got 8 guys that they're looking at. And he agreed with me. I said, you got a lot of talent, a lot of game breakers, especially they got some transfers in too, Corey Wren and guys like that. They could fill this role. So he's in a very good position. He's got a lot of potential guys to fill those spots. And, it'd be so nice. It's been a while at Florida State since we've seen a potent return game. So, I think there's a decent chance with those weapons, if those guys are coached up with the emphasis Coach Norvell and Coach Papuchis puts, we're going to see a dramatic improvement in special teams this year.
I don't know how much more Marvin Wilson could possibly improve. He heads into the season as a preseason All-American. He was the first player that the media was able to speak to on Thursday. Probably stole the show with a quote of his, pretty much asked when he looks around the country and sees other guys possibly sitting out, what he thought about that and if that was ever an option that crossed his mind, Gene.
I've really been focused on here until last. My feet are in here until last. I can't really be looking out to everybody else. I'm just trying to focus on what we got here going on with the Seminole brand and moving forward. As far as opting out and different things like that, I didn't come back to not to sit out or just to opt out and go prepare for the league. I think that's just taking the easy way out. For me personally, I came back. I have work here to do until last, and I'm going to get that done.
And some breaking news almost here, Gene, as we record. Ira just texted me. Gregory Rousseau, that game-breaking defensive end for Miami, he just opted out. So to hear Marvin say that he's kind of all in, that had to be pretty comforting for Florida State fans.
Yeah, it was. I love the comment. I think that was the comment of the whole press conference we had today, that he was not taking the easy way out, and he didn't come back to Florida State to skip it. That he's all in, and I think that's great. When your leader has that mentality, I think that's really going to help go across the board. And it was also interesting talking about him. We'll talk about Jay-Shan here in a minute, who's the other player we talked to today, about what they're going to do in terms of policing themselves. Because I think the coaches can say all they want and explain the protocols. But, at the end of the day, if Florida State's going to be able to get through this season without having a COVID outbreak, you've seen it in the pros, it's going to be up to the players. They got to self-police. Students are coming on campus soon. There's house parties. There's get-togethers. And, man, when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, man, that is very tempting. But you see a guy like Marvin Wilson, how would you feel if you come to the school, you transfer in, you're a freshman or something, you go out to a party and you make this guy who is so committed and such a leader, you make him miss out on the senior season of Florida State. So, I mean, there's a lot riding on the line for these guys, and you really hope they take that to heart. And again, that's going to be the players are going to have to self-police themselves.
When it comes to recruiting, Gene, a lot of players get playing time kind of dangled in front of them as an incentive to come to campus. I'm sure Jay-Shan Corbin was told he'd have every shot at competing for the starting job, but it feels like he probably has a starting job, sort of the inside track on as we do begin practice. And you figured he might have done a little more research on the coach that he agreed to come play for, but I think it was a pleasant surprise for him the more he got to learn about this new staff that he chose.
I'm very excited. Coming in, I didn't even know Memphis has been in the top 5 rushing teams for consecutive years. Just looking at that and seeing how they use the running backs, being in the backfield, and being able to out wide, I feel like that just plays into my abilities perfectly. I'm just happy to be here, and I'm thankful to be in this type of offense.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. You think when a guy transfers in from one Power 5 program to another, he's done research. And I'm sure, Jay-Shan did some research about Florida State and Mike Norvell, but apparently he didn't know how prolific Memphis rushing attack was. I mean, this is just 2 years ago. They had the number 4 rushing attack in the nation. I think they were top 40 last year. But, I mean, that's really amazing. So a guy comes in, obviously, with Layburn no longer with the program, and he is the man. I mean, there's absolutely pretty little doubt that he's probably going to be your starter. Now, there's some very talented young guys behind him. Deontay Sheffield comes back a little bit of a experience there, even though he's, I guess, still technically a walk-on. Maybe he'll be put on scholarship. But yeah, he's going to be the man. And the fact that, Mike Norvell is a run-first coach and has done so, consistently on a very high level for years has to bode well for what Jay-Shan could do on the field this year.
Yeah, man, definitely picked the right sort of system to run into, I guess you could say. So lots to look forward to with Jay-Shan running behind, hopefully an improved offensive line. So practice starts tomorrow on Friday. But before we get to there, do head over to warchant.com. Corey Clark's got a write-up on Marvin Wilson and what he could probably mean to this team moving forward. Ira's also got some additional insight that he's going to share. The schedule's released. I'm sure everybody's looked at that. Do you have any thoughts on that one, Gene? I know you kind of picked that out a few days ago and said that Samford game's probably going to still be on and it'll be week 2. And then sure enough, that's what it came out to.
Yeah, no, I know everyone's going to complain and there's no way to do it perfectly. But I mean, I like the fact that they start out, at home against, one of the lesser ACC opponents. My fear was, we talked about it before, opening potentially against maybe Clemson or Notre Dame. I just think that's you don't want a new coach trying to get off to a good start to have to start out with a loss and potentially a bad loss. I mean, you've got 2 very winnable games to start out the season. So, I mean, I think that's good to get your feet wet, get that simple implemented, and to be able to move forward with everything. So, I mean, sure, then you go Miami, Notre Dame, but at least there's a bye week between those 2 games right there. And, it's very manageable. You got Clemson at the end of the year, but at least other than Miami, Notre Dame, I think most of the tougher games are spread out pretty well for Florida State. So, I mean, it's a doable schedule. It's a schedule. I mean, I think they should be bowl eligible, whether it's going to be 6 wins, 8 wins, or, somewhere around there. I don't know, but I mean, it's doable. It's workable. And the nice thing is, when's the last time Florida State started out a season 2-0? I can't even remember. Was it, I have to go back and look at that. That was 2015.
I'm guessing
the last time. 16?
16, they beat Ole Miss. Do they have? They have somebody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it must have been 16. That's right. They came back to beat Ole Miss. So it's been a while for that to happen. So I mean, a little bit of excitement. A little 2-0 start for Florida State. And I got to get by. Georgia Tech's not going to be a pushover for Florida State, but I mean that's definitely a winnable game at home.
Definitely. Head over to warchant.com. Stay connected. Use that promo code again, folks. Norvell 2020. You get 25% off an annual membership. You get a $25 e-card to Garnet and Gold and 3 free additional months tacked onto that annual membership that's already being discounted for you at 25%. So do head over, sign up, join the climb with Mike Norvell and the Noles. We'll have you covered every step along the way. Gene, thanks for your time and insight.